and what we may see in the consumer-orientated space for Vega. So there's a few notes that I want to bring out. The first is the whole HBCC, which is the higher bandwidth memory controller, and actually data efficiency. Now, we have already gone into what this is. Essentially, it is the ability of the GPU to decide what data is pertinent to keep within its own memory, in other words, resident to the local VRAM of the GPU. So, for example, let's say you have a 4GB card. Well, not all data that you're going to fill in with that into that card is always going to be required at all times, and sometimes data gets old. Sometimes data doesn't need to be used right this second because the asset is not, let's say, in view for several moments, whatever the case may be. I'm somewhat simplifying, of course, for this particular video. Now, what is interesting is that a lot of games actually overestimate their VRAM usage scenario. So, for example, a game might request to partition 4GB of memory inside the GPU. Let's say for this video that you have an 8GB GPU, so 8GB of memory local to the GPU. The game might decide, hey, I need 4GB for all of my assets. And so what it does is it basically sets up a request. The GPU driver will then say, okay, well, we're going to make this little partition, this little box of memory, which is specific only for this application. However, quite often, the game doesn't actually require this amount of VRAM. And this has been one of the reasons that you'll notice that PC graphics cards, 4GB versus 8, doesn't actually suffer that much. If you start going down lower than 4, for example to about the 3 mark, and certainly the 2, you'll start seeing a hitching in frame rate, but it's not a really big deal. Raja has also pointed out that he doesn't want the focus necessarily to be on the amount of VRAM anymore. Instead, he wants to focus primarily on memory bandwidth. What he has said is that games will consume less memory on launch. So I'm slightly paraphrasing, but he said current games won't be hugely different, but latter games will be, especially as developers get better used to the architecture. But alt-tabbing will be a lot faster because data inside the VRAM won't all have been used. However, that isn't to say that a game, let's say, that requires 8GB of RAM, but you've only got 4GB in the Vega architecture with the older title, it might not necessarily run completely smooth, but it will be still smoother than what you would see from the current GPU that would be in a similar circumstance. He also elaborated a little more on programmable geometry pipeline, as well as the pixel pipeline. He said that in Deus Ex, there's 220 million polygons, average, of course, per scene. That is, per frame. But in reality, most of the time, you only see about 2 million of those polygons. DrawStream handles pixels and very much a similar type of circumstance. And so, how much difference it makes per frame actually varies massively. You could have this situation where the performance of one frame is barely impacted because perhaps there's not too much on screen, therefore not a lot of overdraw. On the other hand, you could have another situation where, let's say you're in, I don't know, kind of like an office, and there's loads of desks and there's loads of things which could possibly be covering or rather hindering your vision of something else, and perhaps behind the desk you can see like a window, perhaps behind that there's perhaps, I don't know, a city block scene, maybe with some flowers in some plant pots outside, and you're in these bay windows and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it's a very complex scene to render because there is just so many moving parts. Excuse me, so much geometry, in which case that may see a bigger increase in frame rate. And so he said that he doesn't really want the discussion to necessarily focus on the teraflops. This has been something I've hinted at for a while now. A T-flop is not actually just a T-flop. It really is, much like clock speed per CPU, it really comes down mostly to the architecture itself and what you do with that level of performance. So their goal isn't just to keep cranking things faster and faster and faster, but instead to make the GPU more efficient so that what they put in for a particular price point can be faster than the previous generation while keeping the price low. I'll give you an example. The RX 480 hit like $200 when it was first released, which was way lower than most people anticipated, and it did somewhat shake up the market. It offered a hell of a lot of performance for a low price point and was actually technically VR capable. And not just VR capable, it could run like 1440p games, not too much issue. Another thing that was cleared up regards Doom. Now, he was asked, quite frankly, what would the GPU, that would be the Vega card, run at if it was running on OpenGL, which is obviously a lot more optimized. He still said that it would still beat the GTX 1080 they've been using in tests, but he doesn't believe it would either beat by as much, and he's not as confident. And the reason he said that is because OpenGL doesn't have as many low-level optimizations as what's available in Vulkan. Quite frankly, in slightly paraphrasing, but it's a legacy API, and so to their mind, AMD's mind, and I'm assuming mostly for Nvidia as well, especially in the future, the industry is marching towards Vulkan and DirectX 12. So because that was a latter question, what's happening with older APIs, and he said, well, they've only got a certain number of engineers, so really they're trying to look towards the future rather than legacy products, is basically what he said, which I can kind of understand. And to be fair to AMD, their DirectX drivers, DirectX 11 drivers, have improved some anyway. Now I'm going to leave you with one final thing in this particular video, and that is perhaps the biggest out of all of them. What silicon was it that we saw demo Doom and all these games up until this point? And by what silicon, you're going to say, well, it was Vega. Yeah, okay, smart ass, but what version of Vega? Some people thought it was the very high end, some people thought it wasn't, there was some ambiguity there. Now, he actually squirmed a hell of a lot when the interviewer said it was Vega 10, and you can see that it was not supposed to be revealed it was Vega 10, although to be fair, I think most tech enthusiasts knew that at this point. But he didn't tell us what silicon it was exactly, but what he did do is say that it's not really 100% that is the highest end card. He said basically that they're still trying to figure out yields, clock speeds, TDP, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Therefore, they probably don't know yet where this particular product, where this particular SKU falls within the gamut of all of their products. Now, personally speaking, I'm going to make the assumption that they're going to have multiple product tiers, all with Vega, Vega 10, Vega 11, forget Vega 20 for a moment, Vega 10, Vega 11, Vega 10 being the high end, which would probably be the HBM2 versions, and the lower end ones are going to be like GDDR, PAP5, perhaps 5X memory. And I'm going to make the assumption, and I'm basing this on an assumption, I'm not basing this on fact, I'm going to make the assumption that there's probably going to be the equivalent of the 460, the 470, the 480. There'll probably be like a 490, and then there's possibly going to be two equivalents of the Furies. So that would of course be the Fury and the Fury X. So I'm going to make the assumption, once again, that there's probably going to be a card which has like 36 compute units, which is currently the 480, so I'm going to say that would be the 580. There'll probably be like a 590, which will have maybe 44-ish compute units, and then you're going to have 56 and 64, which will be the various Vega cards. We do know the high-end card has 64, that's been revealed in leaks, but as I said, he hasn't confirmed yet where this falls in the stack, and they haven't confirmed whether this is the bleeding edge card or whether there's still room for them to increase the clocks and so on, which is quite interesting. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.
Nuclear silo on. Warhead connection completed. Nuclear launch detected.
Hello, this is D, and I'm back with another video. Well, today's article comes from wccftech.com, and as usual, I will leave a link in the description of the video so you guys can click on the article for yourself and read it in its entirety. Now, AMD's Vega features have been leaked. Now, according to the article, it's going to have 4 times efficiency, 2 times performance per clock, 8 times capacity per HBM stack, and it's going to have a next generation compute engine. Now, the features of AMD's upcoming Radeon RX 500 series Vega architecture have been discovered in the code of the just launched Vega teaser site, and they're incredibly impressive. The company's upcoming next generation Vega architecture is due for a major preview at CES on Thursday, less than 3 days away. However, thanks to our crafty friends over at 3D Center, we have managed to dig up some major yet unreleased details regarding the brand new architecture, and you don't have to wait many more minutes. All the details have been pulled from within the code base of the Vega teaser website, which not only makes it the biggest Vega leak yet, it also makes it the most significant because of its impeccable authenticity and accuracy. So without any further delay, let's get to the juicy bit. Now, it's going to feature 4 times power efficiency over Polaris, which is incredible, 2 times peak throughput performance per clock. It's going to have a high bandwidth cache, 2 times bandwidth per pin, 8 times capacity per stack, and it's going to be second generation high bandwidth memory. It's going to have 512 terabyte virtual address space, next generation compute engine, next generation pixel engine, next compute unit architecture, rapid packed math, a draw stream binning rasterizer, and primitive shaders. Now, as you can see here on the graph here, you can see the differences that it has over Polaris and what it has over Fiji, which was the architecture before that. Now, of course, it's going to be on the 14 nanometer, just like Polaris, but the teraflops is greatly increased. It's more than double. So now you see RX 480 has 5.8 teraflops. The Vega 10 is going to have 12.5 teraflops of performance, and it's going to have 25 teraflops of performance at FP16 calculations. Now, the memory is going to be using 16 gigabyte or 18 gigabyte of HBM2. Now, the memory bus is so much more improved over Polaris. Polaris had 256-bit. The Vega 10 has 2048-bit memory bus. Now, the bandwidth is also improved. It's about double. It's going to be at 512 gigabytes. And the power consumption is a little bit higher. It's going to be 300 watts, but it's going to have a higher efficiency, so I believe they're going to be able to scale that down. Now, if you know anything about Polaris, there's Wattman, different modes, but it takes a lot less power. Anyhow, at 300 watts, the performance that you're getting, that's not too bad when you really put it into perspective. Now, I'm going to read a little bit more of the article here. It says, according to the newly dug up data from Vega, it delivers 4 times the graphics performance at the same power compared to AMD's previous generation. There isn't much detail to expand upon here in terms of context. However, it's very clear that AMD is referring to half precision compute, which would mean that Vega delivers double the single precision compute at the same power. This is the most impressive figure of the bunch. Doubling the power efficiency of a graphics architecture whilst maintaining or boosting performance is an incredibly challenging engineering feat. One that's made even harder in the case of Vega, considering that it's built on the same 14 nanometer manufacturing process as Polaris. If it stands true, then AMD engineers would have pulled nothing short of a miracle. Now, I gotta say, I'm really excited. We've been waiting for concrete Vega information for a long time. We've had a lot of speculation. We've had some various leaks that came up before, but they weren't too much with the information, and it was a lot of speculation. Now, this leak is coming from the code that is buried within AMD's actual site, so this can't be denied because it's coming from their own site. And as you can see, some of the pictures here. Let me go down here. Actually, let me go over to NeoGAF, because NeoGAF has some pictures here. So as you can see, this comes from their site here. They break it down here. And I gotta say, it seems like the guys over at Microsoft are getting very excited as well, because Greenberg yesterday went on Twitter and he said that, what did he say here? I'm gonna get his exact tweet. He said, it's 2017, the year of Project Scorpio. Are you ready for the beast? Now, the fact that Microsoft is so confident is telling me that Vega is going to be incredible. Now, we know that the Xbox Scorpio is going to be using the Vega architecture because Phil Spencer himself said it will be using AMD's latest technology. And by the time that Scorpio comes out, which is, I believe, holiday 2017, Of course, Vega is going to be the latest architecture from AMD, and it's been highly speculated as well that the Xbox Scorpio is going to be running the Zen CPU. So it's going to be quite a beast. I gotta say, I'm quite excited. For those of you that follow my channel, you do know that I do game on PC as well. So this is exciting for PC. Now, if it's going to be 12.5 teraflops of performance on a single card, this beats out the GTX 1080. Now, going by AMD's track record, it could be priced much cheaper than the alternative, which is the GTX 1080. And with 12.5 teraflops of performance, we will be getting 4K 60 frames per second Ultra on all the games, because the GTX 1080 at 9 teraflops, I believe it's 9 teraflops overclocked about 10 teraflops. Right now it's doing about 4K 60 frames per second on most games, and on other games 4K 50 frames per second. So of course we're going to get a much higher performance increase with the Vega architecture, and of course with 12.5 teraflops of performance. Now I want to know if you guys are excited out there. Are you guys going to hold off and get the Scorpio now, knowing that it's going to be running the Vega architecture and the advancements that it has over the Polaris, which the PS4 Pro is running? And for you PC gamers out there, are you excited that AMD is finally going to have a one-card solution for 4K 60 frames per second gaming? Anyways, I want to know what you guys think down below, so please leave your comments down there. I ask you guys to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Even if you won't let anything colored green or blue come within 10 feet of your PC, it's hard to deny that the last few years have been a tough time for AMD fans. Aside from very minor incremental updates, we haven't seen any truly new high-end desktop CPUs, and Team Red is still getting handily beaten in the GPU market as well. But hope springs eternal, and it looks like there's going to be plenty for AMD fans.
Smoke 'em! Ha! We did it! We ought to take this mercenary camp.
Warning. Core under attack by hostile forces. Alert. Your core is under attack. Enemy hero terminated. Warhead deployment complete. Collection is advised. Double kill. Warhead collection confirmed. Your nuke is now ready. Warning. Core under attack by hostile forces. Nuclear launch detected. Administrator unresponsive. Initializing respawn. Collection complete.
Welcome back, guys.
Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, and it's time to make a fun and informative video. Usually I would mean that extremely sarcastically, because you read the title. But no, seriously, apparently I have to stoop down to this level of intelligence, sorry this insults many of you, because I need to explain to some people who are clearly complete and utter idiots why net decking is harmful, why it's wrong, why everything everybody believes about net decking is a load of crap. I'm sure calm, logical, well-organized, irrefutable evidence will definitely keep people out of the comment section saying, lol, you're wrong, net decker lose, you're just a loser, blah, 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 you know, all the other immature crap that stupid 12-year-olds leave on my channel. But this video especially goes out to the borderline retarded Tasty Snackies who clearly proved that he not only knows nothing about magic, but knows nothing about me and knows nothing about net decking. So this is a very informative video, custom tailored just for you. Oh, and if you want to settle this once and for all, I will fight you. And I'm not Keemstar, I won't back out. But I am poor, so you gotta come to Wisconsin. That might be a bit of a drive from whatever fantasy version of reality you live in. Anyway, net decking and standard, because that's what everybody cares about. Let's talk about that. First of all, you guys do know that about 3,000 people show up to a tournament, and there's only, I believe, 16 rounds. I actually am completely disinterested, not even gonna look it up to check if that's true. The myth about net decks is that the best decks will be in the top 8 at a given tournament. So a tournament occurs, whatever the results are, those are the most powerful decks, period, the end. Now, clearly there's a little bit wrong with that. So for that to be true, a couple other assumptions have to be true, and this is going to sound stupider and stupider as I go, but apparently I, like I said, really need to spell it out for some people. So 16 rounds and 3,000 people, plus the final rounds, completely not enough, mathematically not enough to prove which deck is the best.